Good afternoon and welcome to D for Diving's YouTube channel, where today we're going to have a deep dive into equipment that you might need as a new diver. Now, as a lot of people will go out and they'll start to learn to dive, and as they're learning to dive, the dive shop that they'll do their training course will say, you need this, you need a wetsuit, you need a mask, you need a BCD, you need fins, you need mask, you need a dive computer, and you can walk away having spent $500 on a course and $2,500 on equipment. And that's before you've even decided whether you like the sport or not. So today we're going to have the dive pros here at D for Diving talk to you about our own personal experiences and our own personal opinions on what equipment you need to buy, and more importantly, why. For me personally, I'm somebody who likes to buy good equipment, but I don't like to pay top dollar for the good equipment. And so therefore, I don't go for your premium brand. I'm not somebody who's typically going to go out and buy Atomic or Apex or something like that. Now, they're good products, and don't get me wrong, they are very, very good products, but they're premium priced. And are they significantly better than the next tier of product to justify that price? And for me personally, in terms of the type of diving that I do and the type of diving that I enjoy, the answer is often no, they're not. So choices I would make are typically going to be in the mid-market segment, or actually at the value proposition end, so smaller brands that you may not have heard for, where you can get cracking deals on really good product. So the key things that I would recommend to any diver: the first thing you probably want to buy is a mask. Why? It's not an expensive piece of equipment, but it's the most personal and comfortable piece of equipment that you can possibly have. If your mask fits you, you can have an amazing dive. If your mask doesn't fit you, it doesn't matter how good that dive was, it becomes a terrible dive. If you're constantly having to clear your mask, if it's flooding, if it's fogging up all the time, if it's not your mask, then you can have problems. Now, there are a number of different fitments of masks, different ways that masks will fit the shape of your face in different styles. And we've got a video here, which I'll put down the link below, which talks about the different types of masks that you can look at. But finding a mask and buying a mask that fits you is the real difference between having a comfortable dive and having an amazing dive. And so I would say my first thing is a mask. The second thing that I'm going to recommend that people go out and buy is a dive computer. Now, granted, I'm a dive pro and I use a Garmin Descent as my dive computer, and it's a top of the line dive computer. And no, for a new diver, you do not need to buy anything that's anywhere near that expensive. So if you hear somebody say to you, you need to buy a Shearwater Perdix or a Shearwater Terek, you don't. My recommendation for you as a starting diver, somebody brand new, is to go and buy a relatively inexpensive dive computer. And I cannot recommend highly enough something like a Cressi Leonardo or a Mares Puck or something like that. They're about $200, and they've got a big display, and they've got user changeable batteries, and they do exactly what they say on the box. And that is, they'll help you plan your dives and do your dives safely. Great thing about them is you can go out and buy a dive computer for $200, dive with it for a year or two, and still sell it for 50% of the value. So sell it for $100 a year later, 2 years later, because there's always demand for these bottom of the market dive computers, because they do what they say on the box. They're really, really robust. So my second recommendation, as I said, is a relatively inexpensive dive computer. Recommendation number 3 is your own boots and fins. Now, for many places, many dive centres, they'll give you some rental full-foot fins, and they'll be fine if you're diving for a day or two. But if you're diving any longer than that, the power that you can get from an open heel set of fins with your own boots, the comfort that you get from being in your own boots, the versatility of being able to walk backwards and forwards between a boat and on a deck or a dock in your own boots, that for me is enough. That comfort that comes with having your own footwear. If you went bowling and you went to the bowling alley and you rented shoes and you wore them all barefoot, would you really be comfortable putting your feet into somebody else's? I know I wouldn't be. So whilst dive centres will offer fins, of course will offer fins, my recommendation number 3 is to make sure you always have your own fins. Number 4, and this is sticking on the comfort side of things, the next recommendation is going to be your own wetsuit. You are going to know whether you have a propensity to feel cold or whether you feel warm, and so therefore buying a wetsuit that you feel comfortable in for the water that you're going to dive in means that you're going to feel more comfortable when you're diving. It's also one of those things that we joke within diving that there are 2 types of divers in the world. There are those divers who will openly pee in their wetsuit, and there are those who will lie about it. What we're effectively saying is everybody pees in their wetsuit. So if you're borrowing a wetsuit, if you're renting a wetsuit, you know what I'm saying. So therefore, from my own perspective, I would say get some gear that you're comfortable in, that's styled for you, that's priced for you, that's your wetsuit. If you choose to pee in it, it's yours. It's entirely up to you. You're not going to be giving it to somebody else, and you're not going to be worried about somebody else's being in your suit. But the most important thing is the comfort that comes with knowing that you're in your own suit. The final thing, the 5th thing that I'm going to recommend, and that's because again it's sticking with comfort and familiarity, and that's your own BCD, your own buoyancy control device. Now again, it doesn't have to be expensive, but it needs to be something that you know where your pockets are, where your clips are, and you know where you can stash and store your equipment. Get your own BCD, it means that you can be comfortable and get used to the buoyancy and get used to the way your BCD will hold you in the water. After that, go ahead and buy any other equipment that you need, whether it be regulators or anything like that. Regulators in dive shops, regulators in rental shops tend to be reasonable quality, but typically very well maintained. Certainly the dive shop that we have here, we maintain our regulators very regularly. Now a lot of people will talk about buying on the second-hand market. Certainly when I learned to dive and when I first became a pro, I bought all of my equipment on the second-hand market, and quite frankly most of it was brilliant. But you've got to be careful. If you don't know what you're buying used equipment which could have been abused, and so therefore the recommendation if you're ever going to buy any used equipment is make sure you get it checked over and make sure you get it tested before you actually take it in the water. You don't want to be trusting your life to a bit of dodgy equipment, particularly when it comes to BCDs or regulators. Anyway, let's hand over to somebody else.
My order is more or less the same as Gary's, so I'm going to run through it fairly snappy and just give my reasons for all of the same stuff. One for me is a mask. More or less same reasons as Gary. I in particular am fairly awkward in sizing of everything, so especially when it comes to face, I have a little bit of a strange head. So I would always recommend getting a good mask that fits you nicely, rather than using one at a shop where you never know if it's quite going to fit. You've got to adjust the straps in every time. Not an ideal situation for you. So, number 2, the only one on my list that isn't about comfort as far as things fitting is going to be the same as Gary. I'm going to say going buy a cheap, inexpensive dive computer. I personally dive with a Divesoft, and I have a newer watch-style computer on the way soon, hopefully, fingers crossed. But I would recommend, same as Gary, starting out with something like a Sunto Zoop, a Cressy Leonardo, a basic Mares, or even an Aqualung, just to start you off with your diving journey. I personally started with a Sunto Zoop back in the day when I was much smaller, and it served me well up until a year and a half ago. Had it for about 4 years, sold it for about £100. So very nice, easy computers to use, and yeah, good for a starting out diver. Number 3 then is going to be wetsuit. I'm putting this slightly higher on my list than Gary did on his. I think he had fins in this spot, but I'm putting it here because, as I've said before, I have quite an awkward body shape, and I feel the cold. So if I turn up to a dive centre and want to go for a couple of days diving and it's 26-degree water and they stick me in a, let's say, I don't know, 3mm long wetsuit that doesn't fit me very well, the seals are very loose, or the seals are good and it's fitting nicely except it's up to there on me, it's not a situation I like being in, especially as someone that gets cold fairly easily. So I'd recommend getting yourself a wetsuit that fits you nicely and keeps you comfortable in any type of water that you're going to be diving in, whether that needs to be a 5, 7, 3, whatever it might be. Get a comfortable wetsuit that you like and fits nicely for you. Number 4 then, continuing in that vein of track of being slightly awkward body shape and size, I'm going to go with a BCD. For me, a BCD is one of the hardest things to find that fits properly, especially with jacket style, which is why when I went and got my new one, I went for backplate and wing that's got a harness that I can adjust nice and easily, and that worked fine for me. I've recently as well taken off the adjustable harness and made it into a custom one-piece harness in a lovely white, which I'm loving. But just to make it fit nicely for me, because I tend to find that a small is even just a little bit too big for me in some areas, but too small in others, because I'm quite long, quite skinny. They don't tend to fit me properly, so I'm sort of between sizes almost. So yeah, BCD would be my number 4 recommendation. Number 5 then, last one on my list, is going to be fins and boots. As I said, exactly the same list that Gary has, just in a slightly different order. So for me, these are still important, but if you take into account all the other sizing issues that you're going to have with the wetsuit, the BCD, the mask, I think it is going to have to be the bottom of the list, especially once you put that computer in there as well. But as Gary said, it's so much more comfortable diving with your own fins. Get much more power, you're much more familiar with which kickstroke is going to be most effective for them. And then even for things like loading the boat, if you're walking into quite a rocky bay or even just a sandy bay that's got some rocks or some shells in it, it's always nice to have a pair of boots on that are nice and comfy and you know are going to keep your feet nice and protected. But yeah, that's my top 5. I'm now going to spin it over to the next one.
So for me, the 5 first items to buy when you start diving would be number 1, mask and snorkel. And I'm gonna throw in the snorkel over there because when I first started diving, I was just diving like maybe once a year when I was planning my holidays, for example, going out on a holiday. I would maybe dive for a week and go to places where there were beautiful beaches and I could do some snorkel activities. So having your own snorkel, it helps. Not that you actually need it that much for diving. Let's be honest. The more you dive, the more comfortable you are, and then you just toss it. But at the beginning, it's actually a good idea if you're traveling around with your own stuff. Also, for comfort reasons, mask. As you can see, my face is kind of flat on the side. So when I first started diving, it was very, very important to me to be able to actually pinch my nostrils. And depending on the mask shape, sometimes I can't even find it down there. So it's very, very, very important to find a mask that has a skirt that is very comfortable on your face, that sits well, that doesn't leak, and that allows you to equalize well. Number 2 for me would be also because of comfort and traveling reasons, fins and boots. I'm gonna go with boots, although you might even go for neoprene socks when you start diving, but boots are much more comfortable. Reason for boots, yes, to walk around, carry your own gear on your back can be quite heavy, and if you have to walk on pavement or on the beach going up onto the boat, it can be actually quite uncomfortable to be stepping on stones and sand and all that stuff. And also because there is nothing worse than being on a holiday and having blisters on your feet. When you start diving, most dive shops would actually just give you full foot fins, and for me at least, that's the most uncomfortable and disgusting feeling ever, to have something rubbing on my feet the entire time. And if you get blisters on your feet, you know what happens. They take forever to heal, so they might actually ruin your holiday. Number 3, for me, I'm gonna put computer here because when I first started diving, I remember feeling very, like, not paranoid, but I was constantly worried about my depth. And let's be honest, if you don't have a dive buddy with you that you're used to dive with, and someone that you can rely on that actually has a dive computer as well, and you don't have your own, most likely you're gonna go and dive with a dive center. They're gonna assign a dive master or an instructor, but for the entire group, it's not gonna be right there with you. So unless you're actually following the same profile as that person, you're never gonna know what depth you are, and you're gonna be feeling a little bit uncomfortable and worrying about this the entire time. Besides, carrying a dive computer, I mean, they're not that bulky. You know, you can carry it in your luggage. Today you can find secondhand computers that are in perfect conditions to buy. I started with a very inexpensive one, a Cressy Giotto, that I was able to use for almost 400 dives. I think almost 500 dives, and then even sell it for a really good price in order to buy a better one when I started diving more often. So go for it. It's never a bad idea to have one. Number 4, I'm gonna go with BCD, because like Gary said, there's nothing better than actually having your own gear, knowing where your D-rings are, where your pockets are. If you need to carry something with you, or you find some litter of garbage, for example, and you want to pick it up, you put it in your pockets and you know where everything is. Also today, travel-wise, you can find different options that are very lightweight and don't take much space on your luggage. So definitely go for a BCD. And number 5, the last one of my options would be wetsuit. And I'm not gonna go for wetsuit here. I'm gonna go for thermal protection. Also depending on the kind of diving that you're gonna do. If you first started diving and you come like me from a place in the world which is actually quite cold, and then you go out diving in the tropics, definitely you're not gonna need a wetsuit. I started with a semi-dry 7 mil because I did my open water in beginning of winter in Patagonia, which was very, very cold. I wouldn't do it now. But then when I started diving outside, I remember a dive center gave me a 3 mil long wetsuit, and the water was at 30 degrees, and it was the most uncomfortable dive I have ever had. Seriously, I think you can actually manage to be a little bit cold when you're diving, but being hot and overheating underwater is just awful. So I would go for thermal protection. If you need maybe a 1 mil or a 1.5 shirt, and then a good pair of shorts, you can even use them as a layer if you start feeling a little bit colder. And ask for a 3 mil shorty, and then you have your layers, and that's it. Another reason why not having a wetsuit, and I wouldn't carry a wetsuit, because it takes a lot of space. It takes a lot of time not so much time, but you have to like wait until it gets dry, otherwise it starts smelling in your bag. So yeah, I'm not friends with wetsuits, to be honest, when I'm traveling, because you can always just rent one.
Thank you for watching this episode of Deep for Diving's YouTube channel, and we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, smack down on that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up too. Tell us how much you liked it. If you want to leave some comments down below talking about what equipment you think is the most important for us to buy, and what sort of money you'd be prepared to pay as a new open water diver to get yourself kitted up. But also, thanks for coming back and joining us on the channel. We've got some exciting new programming coming up, including the next instalment of The Dive Shop, our look behind the scenes of how we operate here and the little things that go on. So another opportunity to meet the new team. Thank you very much. See you soon.